So daylight savings time apparently happened. I noticed this because I woke up, and I've been waking up pretty dependably at 3:30 in the morning, and I woke up at 4:30 this morning. So I am trying to finish up my edits, and I need pretty much every hour of daylight this time of year. You know, if I have to spend the morning working from bed in the pre-dawn, this isn't too bad of an option. This is seriously the best campsite down here. And per far out comments, people just saw the trail side clearing that was kind of sloped and were disappointed. And that area is through the down trees and things there. Okay, time to crawl back through the brush and start climbing. Looks like the first 7 miles or so is going to be uphill today. Oh, this is pretty. So my little site was down there near that bend. So it's probably at least partially due to me walking funny. You know, anytime you have anything hurting, you tend to adjust your gait, and that makes you sore in different ways and things. But this trail has been beating me up a fair amount, at least so far, compared to, you know, the Benton, for example. One of the people yesterday had been debating either doing this trail or half of the Benton Mackay. He didn't want to do the Smokies part, basically, as his AT prep. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. Like, this is a nice trail. Everybody talks really highly of it. It's got waterfalls and everything. But as far as rolling hills and just kind of ability to get miles, the Benton was a lot more straightforward. I mean, the reality is, personally, he's doing a 77-mile hike a few months before his start date. I always try and get out. The minimum I have done has been a couple of 5-day trips, like a few weeks before I start. Because anything where you're off trail for a few months, anybody who has jumped off trail and gone into civilization for like a wedding or anything can tell you how quickly it feels like you lose conditioning. Honestly, the ones I have been the most successful at were the ones where I set out and I did something, you know, hard, like the Condor Trail, before getting out on a big trail. It is always kind of mind-boggling that people will get all excited and announce over social media how they're doing the trail, yada yada, whether it's AT, PCT, etc. And then to prepare for their big 6 months, they maybe walk around a neighborhood with their pack on a little bit. I've always found that it's less about kind of straight fitness and conditioning versus being used to doing things continuously. So I mean, yeah, if you're out hiking, you know, when I was coming off of being sick this last season, I was doing 6 miles a day on trail multiple times a week, and that helped. I'm also used to through hiking though, and there's a huge difference between, okay, you go out and sweat for a couple hours, go home, shower, change into dry clothes, sleep in a dry bed, versus hike for 10 to 12 hours, unpack your tent, sleep on the ground, wake up in the cold, and keep moving. So for me, always needs to be backpacks, needs to be as close as I can, and 5+ days ideally. And the reason I do 5+ is, and this is obviously assuming you have the time, civilization and, you know, anchors being what they are. But you come out and like the first day, you're great. Usually there's a couple of days where you're kind of getting used to it, especially early in the season. Shoulders are hurt, stuff like that. Maybe your legs will get sore. I have trouble making my legs sore these days. And then you kind of start to recover, and it's more that adjustment period I want to go through. And also it lets me bang on my gear. I mean, I see a lot of people out on shorter trails as prep hikes, they say, and there's stuff hanging off the outside of their pack I can guarantee you is going into a hiker box pretty damn early. The classic is, of course, the yield hiking chair. Section hikers and people not doing long trips tend to crow about how great they are. You'll see some people start with them, but it's usually a rare person that keeps them very far, especially once you realize, just leaning against your pack is a rather comfortable seat. I do own a couple of those little mini backpacking chairs from my weekender days, and admittedly, the extra batteries I carry now, due to the whole video thing, are probably heavier than that chair, but kind of similar to what I was saying about campsites. I'm hiking throughout the day. Camp time is less of a thing. When I was leading Sierra Club groups, you start early, you hike in. By mid-afternoon, you're at camp. Everybody kind of decompresses, swims, etc. We have a happy hour, and then we're moving the next day. And that is kind of really needed for those trips because, we all live at 500 feet above sea level or less out in SoCal. And here we are going up and camping at, 9 to 12,000. So overexerting is one of those things that can trigger major altitude issues. So there I might carry some extra stuff. We usually go fancier on food. We'll actually cook things. But as a statement I came across early on when I was planning for the PCT or the ECT, it's more of a walking trip than a camping trip. That chair is going to be on your back for 10 to 12 hours a day, whatever it is. And you will get, a nice comfortable seat for maybe an hour, 2 at the end of the day. And as things get more real, the further on you get, that camp time seems to go down for everybody. At least the folks I've been around, and keep in mind, this is specifically trying to do an end-to-end on something like the PCT or the AT. Your section hiking, you just have more flexibility, less deadlines, less weather risks and things like that. But down in the desert in California, I saw plenty of groups kind of lagging around, drinking and drugs and yada yada, just partying their way. And then NorCal, that was where everybody finally started to look at the calendar and go, oh crap, what are we gonna do? And they either, buckled down or started moving, the classic being, I'm gonna do Oregon in like 2 weeks. Or in the case of a few of the party crews that were around us, they just jumped up to Washington. Because I remember leaving several groups in the dust and then running into them up at Washington going, oh, hey, where do you guys come from? And I've never seen any hard data, it probably doesn't exist for this, but anecdotally, just observing what happens on the trails around me when I'm on there, or, paying attention to social media for those particular class years. It really feels like once the people decide, okay, I'm going to cut and jump up and then I'll come back down, they are less likely to finish for whatever reason. And I mean, to me, that makes perfect sense. This is one of the reasons I'm not a big fan of the whole CDT plan of doing New Mexico and then flipping north and coming south. You've got, at least for me, the monuments have always kind of loomed large. Once I get there, it's like, okay, take a picture, yada, yada, onwards to the next adventure. But leading up to it, there's always that fixation on the Canadian border, the Mexican border, the monument here, there. and it would just be less exciting. I saw a lot of people when I finished the CDT finishing at Chama, which was, convenient, but there's a difference between that and getting to a remote stretch of the border somewhere, at least to me. And I was having a conversation yesterday with somebody. They were planning to start the AT, and they were worried they wouldn't be able to finish if they started within the normal, good weather window. So they were pushing into that January, February timeframe that seems to be increasingly popular these days. And I was trying to explain, I had 10 plus years backpacking, peak bagging, doing all this stuff, teaching a wilderness class, and I couldn't estimate my daily mileage after the first month or two. Most everybody, there's no point in making those plans. Can you say, okay, 15 miles a day gets me there? Yeah, and I kind of do that. So CDT, I think I needed to be regularly making 22 a day, but it's just a guideline. And before you get out and you realize how you react and how many zeros you need and things like that, you've got no idea. If you told me I was going to be doing 25 miles a day by the time I reached, NorCal, Oregon, or that I would then be struggling to make 15 at times due to foot and skin rash issues, I doubt I would have believed you. So I always look at those planning guides, and it's like, okay, yes, that is a plan for I will get here on this date. That's neat. And then flush it down the toilet, because other than give you a warm fuzzy, it's not going to have much to do with reality. I track my mileage on all these using a Google spreadsheet, so I can go back and kind of see what my mileage trend was. And interestingly enough, at least for my wimpy butt, it kind of comes and goes in cycles. I will hit a steady state for a while. Usually that means I'm in some sort of area where there is either pressure or a very similar trail. See Kansas. Flat, consistent, just had the heat. But on most trails, I'll do a couple of days around 23, 25. I'll end up dropping down to 17. Town stops are always really disruptive, which is partially why I skipped a lot of those. CDT, for example, I think I hit half of the towns. And on the PCT, once I got to Oregon, I was worried about time, because you've got a kind of hard stop due to Hart's Pass. So I was using Yogi's accelerated resupply plan, where you basically rely on boxes and things sent to these little RV resorts and completely avoid Sisters, Bend, etc. And at the time, I had people around me telling me that I was stupid for doing that. It was so cool going to Bend. There were all these breweries and things. And I get that. And I've had memorable town stops. Asheville, right at the border, for example, where Jen left, was really nice to go to. But at the end of the day, kind of similar to the Mississippi, I'm out here to do the traveling part, and I don't want to miss the wilderness traveling part just due to a town stop, especially when, honestly, I have a list of places to visit when I go through there in a car, and I have a lot more flexibility to get around and see things when I'm traveling later versus when I'm on trail. And that is a big one with the Mississippi. There are a lot of people who plan that one who seem to ask on the Facebook group, oh, what towns should I absolutely see to, tourist along the way? But, you got a boat and gear you got to guard. There are people every year, it seems like, that lose their boat either due to things being stolen, or a lot of them don't tie things up real intelligently. As much as Jen hated me for forcing her to drag that boat way up on the beach every night, we never have had that issue. Versus, I'm pretty sure, again, if you search the Facebook group, every year there is somebody whose boat drifted off, and sometimes they get it back and sometimes they don't. So for me, while I have had many cool town stops or hostels or other things, I never really plan for those. If I end up going to a place, okay. Otherwise, who knows, maybe I'll do a nearby trail next time. Or I'll be driving through or something like that. And often the most memorable stops for me have always been the ones I didn't plan for. And it's the same with other things. I saw people killing themselves for like a week before just to make sure they could see sunrise on like Whitney or McAfee Knob. And often the things that have stuck with me are not those big ticket places, because again, it's kind of like the monuments for me. Yes, they're a big deal, but when I get there, it's like, okay, take a picture, go on. And same thing, McAfee Knob was cool. I probably had more memorable days on either side of that. Just, you hit the right patch of woods or a clearing with just the perfect angle of sun or, sunset in some odd place. So I'm always interested in hearing what the highlight spots are, but I don't really adjust my schedule around them. And I remember right after I quit my job, Jen and I did this trip out to Bali to get on a dive boat in Komodo. And we did a, sunrise volcano thing there. I'm drawing a blank on the name, but I had it written up on my website. And we hiked up in the dark, easy hike and all that. We froze our butt off for an hour. And yeah, sunrise was pretty, but it was also cool when the sun was up and we had a view. I don't know that for me personally that little peak of sunrise was worth the less than enjoyable hike part before that. I just remember we were allotted like one little blanket. We didn't have enough layers because, we're in Komodo, Bali area. It's not like you bring super cold weather gear. And we were shivering while being fed banana sandwiches. Literally banana bread. Good times. And part of that is probably, my own brain chemistry. I have a hard time when I am fixated on something ahead. My best days out here are when I just kind of hit my hiker's end, lose myself in walking through the woods, listening to a good book or two. And I'm not constantly focused on, okay, now I've got 7 miles to go to this. Now I have 6 miles. When I'm headed into town, that is my longest day of the carry. Versus, ironically, when I leave town, that's usually the shortest, even though super heavy pack and everything. And the Sierra was probably my least favorite part of the Pacific Crest Trail because it's spectacular, but I knew it all. So each time we, crested anything, it was kind of like, oh, okay. And then we have Muir Pass, and then we have this, and then we have this. Once I finally got north of Mammoth, I got back into new terrain, and oh, that was so much more exciting. And I mean, you've seen that on this trail. I enjoyed the harder northern part of the long trail much more than the AT overlap, and BMT was a little less exciting when I got to the part I'd already seen. Hence why I'm out here instead of just strolling along the AT for a few hundred miles. I have gotten so many earnest requests to go back and do the PCT again since I didn't have videos of that. And I get it. I mean, I wish I had videos too. And of any of them, other than the Florida Trail, which I am absolutely redoing with Blondie when we can get her down there, January to March, the PCT would probably be the one I would redo. Both because that was just the ideal, that was the thing I dreamed about for 10 years. And it's just kind of so varied and epic. But it would mean that the entire way I kind of knew what was coming, and there's just so many other things out there I want to do. Every time somebody's doing a yo-yo or saying, oh yeah, I'm doing this for like the third time, I'm like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, but I'm not going to get to do half the things I want to before, death or financial ruin takes me off the trail. Who has time for constant repeats? I also feel like were I to redo the PCT, and this is something I've seen on others who were redoing something. See, like the halfway anywhere guy. I feel like when things get really challenging, and they will, I mean, it's all well and good to say, oh, I know there are going to be hard days. It's a completely different thing when you're living through 5 days of a rainstorm, everything is soaked, your foot hurts, you're tired, you're lonely, etc. And it's another to be in it in the moment. I mean, even at this point, I still struggle significantly more during like long multi-day rainstorms and things like that. And I mean, on the PCT, I was really sick in Julian for like 3-4 days with Giardia. And this is like 70 miles in. I spent more time off trail than I did on trail. And I didn't come anywhere close to quitting. I was, angrily gripping my stomach. And the moment I could, I shot back out. And same with other pretty big setbacks. See, like the broken rib and the other things, the calf tear / helicopter rescue I've had to go through. But, there was that goal, and that goal is a much more appealing thing if it's the first time I've ever done it. So who knows, I may do the PCT southbound some year if that's all that will work. Granted, at this point, I already got a monument to monument, no skips, flips, etc., barely dodging fires the entire way. And these days, that seems like an increasing challenge. I've known a good number of people who have gone southbound, did the hard part, made it through the Cascades, made it through the Sierra, only to get down to the California desert, where fire closures ended up just shutting them down completely. So honestly, probably PCT southbound would have to be, a contingency case if like we were just really bleeding money to the point where the trails we wanted to do, we thought were going to be too expensive. Patreon had cratered, etc., etc. But I don't know that it would be that much cheaper than anything else to make that call actually worth it. Maybe if we had another pandemic shutdown, because that was seriously the best year to do it. I have had some heartbreaking conversations with people who made the call not to go in 2020. And fair enough, concerned. I've talked a bunch and written about kind of the decision going into that at the time. But less people, more wilderness. And most of us on trail that year were calling it the perfect year. And to any East Coast friends who heard the trail was closed, the trail was never closed. A few individuals in the PCT executive committee made the call that people shouldn't hike. They said that. They tried to get people to cancel. They tried to convince trail angels not to support hikers. And once they got the Forest Service involved, who actually issues the hiking permit, the Forest Service said we were good to go and they were not going to pull the permits like the executive management at the PCTA wanted. Hence why the rallying cry on trail that year was kind of screw the PCTA and less polite language. Don't get me wrong, great organization. I actually ran into somebody who was on their board while I was on trail, and they were kind of surprised. Apparently, again, it was just a few people in the leadership who made a call and went with it, and then just, they never rescinded it. So it got to kind of ridiculous levels there for a bit. But it seems like people on each coast saw the press release from the other coast. So like people on the PCT thought the AT was closed. People on the AT thought the PCT was closed. And there are plenty of us who did it both years and had a grand old time. There was less support, less hand-holding options out there. But if you just wanted to get out and hike, there was nothing stopping it. And we didn't have a single case of COVID on the trail in 20. It was actually a couple of years later when everybody kept getting sick, it seemed like, including me. I mean, I caught it in, 22 on trail? I guess I almost caught it in 21 because Monson Hostel had staff that was sick and they weren't telling anybody unless you actually asked. And people were actually dropped off around me in the 100-mile wilderness and becoming symptomatic. Drama. Upper Whitewater has a overlook that's supposed to be rather cool. So I have been kind of basing which side trail waterfalls I go off to on far out comments and things. In some cases there are pictures. Now, while there was recent-ish rain, obviously it's been kind of a dry year, so if it was a ton of rain, I would probably be going to a couple of more. And there were one or two that I would have gone to just due to names if there were trails going out that way. There was an Evil Ducky Falls early on. So here, for example, Lower Whitewater is a pretty big diversion out and back from the trail. And comments on far out are from people who did it said that the upper are kind of more impressive based on the view from the observation areas. I also kind of figure it's quite possible that Jen and I come back to do this maybe some really wet spring, considering its reputation for, you know, waterfalls and how much she loves those. So yeah, 2 miles to the overlook in middling reviews versus a closer overlook up here and much better reviews. This is fun. Almost see the upper falls through the trees. Instagram happening as we speak. This has got to be the best color I've seen since coming out here. Okay, supposedly this is the one that is totally worth it, shouldn't miss. Just a second. Have I mentioned how much more I like going up stuff like this than I like going down? I think I was sitting still just a little too long. I got really cold all of a sudden, so I'm trying to warm up. This has to be like peak color change through here right now. Oh wow, I was just looking up this hill, didn't even notice the lake. Oh, I miss having views. It took off before I could get a good shot of it, but I just saw a cicada. I have seen them emerge in spring. They don't last really long. I didn't think they were out this late, but that guy certainly was. He wasn't looking overly healthy. I mean, he was on the ground and only took off once I got close. Whatever these multicolor orangey trees are, that is my favorite type of foliage. That's the thing I remember so much from up in Canada during the Key West to Canada adventure. I really hate time changes. Just had a shift of an hour today, so I kind of have a gut feeling for where I need to be throughout the day. But of course, it's basically going to be camp time at 5:30 instead of 6:30 today. You'd think with all the political chaos, we could at least get something like daylight savings times finally killed. Maybe THC legalized, you know, little things. Man, this trail has gotten busy all of a sudden. I've seen about 10 people in the last couple hours, and most of them were backpacking, not just day hiking. At least one said he had just done 20 some miles, and he had a big pack on, but he said he was trying to get to his food cache, so I'm kind of curious what his deal was. Well, it's not quite an evil ducky, but I guess I'll take it. So the trail has been going faster. I have about 3 more hours until dark. Unfortunately, because this is such a, short trail, I do have kind of lineup considerations. I need to do a 7-mile road walk once I get to the end of this in order to connect with my B&B where my resupply is, then overnight, and another 6 miles, I think, from there to start the other trail. So as a result, since the days are kind of short and I haven't been making a ton more miles, I could be making 17 to 20-ish pretty easy. But I need to camp a few miles shy of the park. So there's only about 3-4 miles more I get to do today. Then I just have to find some sort of dispersed camp. And then tomorrow the plan will be another 15-ish miles and set up as close to the park as I can. I figure the park itself is going to kind of be a no-go for any sort of reasonable camping. And on the road, I have no reason to believe there's stealth campable terrain there. So that's the plan. So shorter day today, shorter day tomorrow, and then the following day, best time to the B&B and get in what recovery I can. Once I am actually on the Bartram, I will be unrestricted. I think I was planning to carry 4 days of food to get into Franklin. So I'll probably be a little overloaded due to, that'll be my last chance for a bean and rice resupply. And then from there, buy food in Franklin. And still haven't decided what I'm going to do when I get to the AT. I need to look at resupplies up there at some point. I know if I go north, I get to the Knock, and I seem to recall you could buy a resupply there. However, I really do not want to get anywhere near the Smokies again. And from what I recall, the Knock was where I got my permit, so it's got to be pretty close to Fontana. So ideally, I guess I would turn south, and then I have a couple of days just kind of strolling along. And on the 15th, I just have to be near a road where I can get picked up. Yeah, I'm just hitting a huge bubble of people. Just spent a bit chatting with somebody. I don't know if people are more likely to do this side because this side has the reputation of being easier, or maybe people just hadn't started for a while due to that whole little spat of weather I sat out. Well, mostly sat out. Okay, filled up for the night. I am going to try and camp high and dry because while there is a river section that is probably pretty due to the number of campsites and how close to a road and the start of this it is, I'm kind of figuring that's going to be busy. Okay, made my miles, a little bit over right now. I thought I could find something on this ridge line, but at least at the moment the vegetation hasn't been ideal. I passed up something maybe a mile back that was right off trail. The character of the trail really changed today. It's going to be like this all the way down to the park. I am going to have a long early evening in the tent tomorrow. Unfortunately, I can't really just do a longer day today and tomorrow and then make the B&B because we did already commit to them saying I would be there on the 4th, so better for me to stick to the plan. It is often an attempt at reading tea leaves, figuring out if an area is going to be campable or not. I mean, I can make some pretty rough things work if I have to, but you know, you look at topographical lines and go, oh, saddles, peaks, things like that in your trail. But sometimes the vegetation's so heavy it just ain't gonna work. Years ago, I used a bivvy. One of the times I did the JMT, I actually had a bivvy. But, you know, for weekend stuff and shorter stuff, that's fine. Maybe if I was spending more time in town than on trail, I wouldn't mind it. But since I am out day after day after day, I do quite like the tent mummy bag combo. And I'm poking around off trail, seeing if there's anything I like where I think a tree won't fall on me. Sometimes I'm not sure what stresses me out more, being under miles or being over miles. I am on top of a little peak up above the summit, so don't have to worry about anybody finding me. If I start screaming, somebody might hear me if they were walking down below. But hey, they'll probably just think I'm Bigfoot and report it to that museum a little further north. So tomorrow I have another 15 miles or so, maybe a little less before I need to stop. And hopefully I'll be able to find another camp like this right before the park. Plus side, hey, pit toilets both mornings. Something, right? Home sweet home. Downside, no background noise of the river, but plus side, up this high, weather's clear, so I think I can get away without a fly on tonight. Nice and peaceful.